Hi again then guys, and so we've got another Special Projects replica style build for you today, and this time it's for a classic Corvette Stingray, 3rd generation Stingray, and this is a replica of a pretty rare model called the ZL1 Corvette, and it's essentially the ultimate version of the classic Corvette. Now the particular spec that I'm replicating is Zora Duntov's spec Corvette, which is only finished in white, one of very, very few ZL1s, only around 3 or 4 I believe that were made. And basically, as I said, it's the ultimate Corvette. It was considered by many to be the fastest car in the world in its time, and we're replicating that. So it's a pretty cool, pretty rare car for Corvette fans to replicate. So as far as visual tuning, this is based on the non-premium Corvette Stingray, because the premium version doesn't look quite right, and also you can get the specs closer on this model, but obviously you could replicate it on the other car if you wish to. But as far as visual tuning, we haven't actually done anything to it apart from painting it white, because that's the only thing necessary really to replicate the visual look of the Zora Duntov spec Corvette, who was of course the chief engineer, I believe, to do with the Corvette series. So we'll go straight over to the mechanical garage for the tune setup and then take it out to the track to see what it can do. So the reason why I'm replicating the Zora Duntov version of this car in particular is because that car was fitted with longer ratio gears to allow it to have a stronger top speed. It's not quite as quick over the quarter mile as a red version of the ZL1 that was built, but this version has a better top speed, which just makes it kind of more useful. So I've gone for sport soft tyres, because of course it's more of a street-based vehicle, but just go for whichever ones you want. I've actually left the brakes standard on this one to make it feel more authentic to the time. For the suspension, we've got the ride height on 100, front and rear, springs on 475 and 3, the dampers and anti-roll on 2, with half a point or half a degree of camber front and rear with neutral toe. For the gearbox, I wasn't able to find the exact ratios of the Rock Crusher M22 gearbox which this car actually used, because there are two different versions of the Rock Crusher. There's a short ratio and a long ratio. I was able to find the short ratio, but obviously that's no good to us because this is the top speed version. So I've opted for the M20 gearbox setup instead, which is a 4-speed gearbox. So in order to get those gears, you want to take your auto setting up to 199. Then for the individual gears, you want 2520, 1880, 1460 and 1000. Fifth we've got on 0.605, but you don't use that basically because it's only a 4-speed gearbox. You can of course use it if you want, but if you want it to feel authentic to the original, just don't use 5th gear. And we've got a final drive of 2.5 to get that kind of accurate top speed. Now as far as overall performance, this car is believed to have been capable of 200 miles per hour. So pretty quick, to say the least. Now as far as the diff, we've got the lowest initial torque, highest acceleration, and a braking sensitivity of 15. Again, like with the brakes, I've left the clutch and drive shaft standard just to make it feel a little bit more like an actual road car. Now as far as the power, the engine on this particular model, the ZL1, was actually a 427 or a 7 litre, whereas this is a 5.7 because that's the closest we can get to it on the game. And it's rated at 430 horsepower from the factory. However, if you change the headers, which are less restrictive than the factory fitted ones, this car was capable of producing 585 horsepower. Similar actually to the Camaro ZL1, which ran the same engine. So you want the stage 3 engine tune, sports computer, race exhaust, manifold, cat and intake tuning, leave the supercharger off, and then restrict it down to 585 horsepower. And as far as the weight, you want the stage 3 weight reduction and the window weight reduction with a 110 kilo ballast. Put 20% towards the front of the car to bring us up to the pretty much only weight that I could find for this car according to the specs of 1,336 kilos. And incidentally, that actually brings us up quite nicely to the 540 pp category. So that's it for the replica build of this car. I'm sure there are inaccuracies that I've made. Corvette fans will know, but it's about as close as I could research to the real Zora Duntov spec ZL1. So now let's finally take it out to the track to see how it drives. Now, the only thing that isn't really completely accurate about this car that I wish could be different is the sound. It doesn't really sound like a 427 Corvette would sound, which is a common trait on Gran Turismo, unfortunately, and there's nothing we can really do about that. But overall, I think that fans of the ZL1 Corvette will probably find this car a lot of fun to drive. The fact that it has the stock brakes and relatively soft suspension to make it feel like the original car does make it a little bit more challenging than some of my other builds to drive fast. It's not difficult to drive, but you just have to brake a bit earlier. Bear in mind that you're running relatively soft tyres of a lower quality than racing, putting out a lot of power. As far as performance, the real car runs just over a 12-second quarter mile. This car runs an 11-second quarter, so it is faster than real life, but not too far off. And as far as top speed, as long as you only use the 4 gears, it actually has roughly a similar top speed to the real car. Considering that, as I mentioned earlier, it's considered that the Zora spec ZL1 could do around 200 miles per hour, and this does about 205 in 4th gear. So overall, it's a replica that I'm personally very proud of, and that I hope Corvette fans will be too. So if you'd like to keep up with new replicas and also custom builds like this as soon as they come out, be sure to subscribe down below. And as always, thanks for watching.